This tutorial is a walkthrough of the Picasso Painter project. The link to the instructions for that project are in the description, as well as all the available resources that may answer your questions. I urge you to try to go through this document and through the resources before you come through this video walkthrough. Only come to this video if you're genuinely really stuck and have no idea what to do. This video is going to be unedited to kind of show you my thought process as I code, as well as explain the different parts of this program and how they relate to one another. So to start with, I'm going to put up my starter code, so my setup function and my draw function. Now, I don't know exactly what I need to draw yet, but I do know what I want on my canvas. So I want my canvas to be a full screen. I want it to encompass the entire screen, and I want its background color to be, and I've picked out this nice shade of beige that I want to go with. There we go. So if I hit play, I should have this nice little tan color back here. Now the first step I'm going to take is making my brush function. In other words, my paintbrush. So I'm going to make a brush function. And in this brush function, well, my brush is essentially an ellipse that draws wherever my mouse is. So it draws at my mouse's X location and my mouse's Y location. And for now, I'm going to set it to 50. I'm going to set each of these ellipses to 50 pixels wide by 50 pixels tall. So if I type in brush, if I execute the brush function into draw and I hit play, I should have these dots that show up across my screen. Remember that processing only looks at things that are inside setup and draw. So if I didn't have this piece of code in here, even though I've made a brush function, because processing doesn't see anything outside of draw and setup, so if I hit play, well, nothing's going to happen. So make sure you always execute your functions once you make them. That's my brush function. I'm going to now make my erase function. My erase function is is pretty much the same thing. It's an ellipse that's at the same position as my mouse's X and Y positions. And it is also the same size as my brush, except the only difference is the color of my ellipse, the fill, is the same as my background, so it gives the appearance that it's erasing things. So when I execute the erase command in here, if I remove the brush command and I execute the erase command, I now have a bunch of little circles with borders around them that are the same color as my background. That's my eraser. So now I need to make if and else statements to assign these different functions to different actions. So I want to draw when I'm pressing down the left button on my mouse, and I want it to erase when I'm pressing down the right side of my mouse. So if my mouse is pressed and the mouse button that is pressed is the left one, if both of these parameters are true, go ahead and execute the brush command. Or if my mouse is pressed and the mouse button that's pressed is the right side, go ahead and execute the erase function. So when I hit play, if I press down on my left mouse, I'll be drawing, and when I press it on my right mouse, I'll be erasing. What you'll notice is I'm actually not really erasing because of these little black borders. So to give it the impression that my eraser is an eraser, I'm going to remove the stroke. I'm going to call it a no stroke. So when I hit play, when I draw by pressing on the left side, I'm drawing, and on the right side, since there's no black border, it looks like I'm actually erasing everything. So I've created the eraser and the drawing tool. Now that those are ready, the third part is being able to have multiple brush sizes. And in order to change my brush size, I'll need to make it a variable. So I'm going to make a variable called int brush size. And I'm going to initially set it to 10. In my draw function, I'm going to say if I press a certain key on my keyboard, change the brush size to another brush size. So I'm going to use the numbers 1, 2, and 3. If I press the number 1 on my keyboard, my brush size will increase to 35. If I press 2, it'll increase to 100, and if I press 3, it'll increase to 200. So, if a key is pressed, and that key equals 1, remember to put these little singular quotation marks around your character. If a key is pressed and that key equals 1, I'm going to change the variable of my brush size to 35. However, if a key is pressed and that key equals 2, I'm going to change my brush size to 100. And finally, if a key is pressed and that key is 3, I'm going to change the brush size to 200. So now I have a mechanism for my brush size to change, but now I need to attribute that change towards the actual object. So I'm going to change the dimensions of my objects from 50, 50 to brush size, brush size. So the size of these objects aren't based off of fixed numbers, but instead whatever value this variable is at, depending on whether I press 1, 2, or 3 on my keyboard. And I'm going to do the same thing for my eraser. So both my eraser and my brush size are the same size. So when I hit play, this is the small brush size. If I press 1, this is the slightly bigger one. If I press 2, it gets bigger, and then 3 gets even bigger. And if I press 2 or 1 back again, it goes back to a smaller size. And my brush and my eraser is the exact same size, so I can erase this as well. But I can change to a much larger eraser. That erases things a lot easier. The final thing we're going to add is the reset option. So I'm going to make a function called reset. And essentially what this function does is, in this function, if I press a key on my keyboard and that key equals R, go ahead and set the background to 245, 245, and 220. So in other words, it's going to draw over everything else if I press R. It's going to allow me to have a blank slate. And I'm going to execute this reset function at the end of draw. So to demonstrate that, if I hit play, and if I run everything, and I press R, everything resets, or a new blank canvas comes on top of everything I've made. The final thing is saving an image. So I want to be able to, if I press a button, I want to be able to save an image just by pressing a button. So I'm going to make an if statement. I don't need a function for this since it's quite a short sentence. It's quite a short programming sentence. I'm going to say if a key is pressed and that key equals S, then save frame, and this is another built-in variable into processing. The name of this is going to be drawing.png. And so if I press S, it's going to save my drawing. So if I hit play and I mess around a little bit and I hit S, it should take a photo of everything. So when I'm going up here and I click sketch and I click show sketch folder, my screenshot will be right there. I can open it up and check it out.